the January 8th, 2013 meeting. Got a lot of echo here, don't we?
Sing some mood music for us.
The January 8th, 2013 meeting of the Finance Committee of the Santa Barbara City Council will now come to order. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on items not on today's agenda yet within the purview of this committee? Seeing none, let us go to the first item. Whoever is presenting that.
Chairman Francisco and Finance Committee members, my name is David Rowell. I'm the project planner for the Community Development Department. This is a request for a loan modification on the property located at 4006, 4007, and 4021 Villa Lucero Street, projects known as El Patio. Our recommendation is that the Finance Committee recommend that Council approve a modification of the terms of the city financing on the El Patio Affordable Project. Here's some background. In 1994, the Redevelopment Agency Housing Set-Aside Funds and the City Socioeconomic Mitigation Program, SEMP funds, provided a development loan to El Patio Community Housing Partners to build an affordable complex consisting of 113 low-income units with 48 units designated for senior housing and the remaining 65 units designated for low-income family units. The original loan amount was $3,350,000 with a simple interest rate of 4.5%. Repayment of the loan was based on residual receipts calculation method. The city loan and the city affordable covenant recorded concurrently each had a 30-year term. In 1996, in conjunction with additional financing, a tax credit regulatory agreement, TCRA, was recorded. The city loan was subordinated to the land acquisition loan, which was $2,075,000, a construction loan for $3.5 million, and a long-term loan in the amount of $795,000. The city covenant and the TCRA both stipulate that 113 units be made affordable rental dwelling units for low-income housing. However, the TCRA had a 55-year affordable term expiring in the year 2051, and the city covenant is scheduled to expire in 2024. The owner, Mr. Bill Wagner, owner-developer, has requested a modification of the terms of the city loan such that the fully amortized loan payments will be due monthly over the next 37.5 years with a 3% interest rate. A new affordable covenant will be recorded concurrently with a modified city loan agreement and a deed of trust. This new covenant will extend the term to align with the expiration date of the TCRA. The modified city loan will be due on July 1st, 2050, and the new covenant will expire 6 months later, January 1st, 2051, to ensure full compliance and final payoff prior to release. In terms of loan security, the city's risk position in the loan has improved over time. The city loan, as modified, will now be subject and subordinate to only one existing loan, which has a current balance of $605,000 in favor of the California Community Reinvestment Corporation, CCRC. This loan provides for fully amortized payments with a 3.9% interest rate and is due to be paid in full on or before 2026. The modified city loan will remain in second position with an estimated loan-to-value of 33% based on a very conservative property valuation of $15 million. The city loan plus the CCRC loan result in a combined loan-to-value of only 37%. Originally, the city loan was subordinated to $6,370,000. With this modification, it's subordinated to only $605,000. Title reports covering the property reveal there's no defects to title. At the close of this transaction, First American Title will issue its lender policy, ensuring the city with a liability in the amount of a modified city loan, which is approximately $5 million. In terms of the loan repayment, the modified city loan will be fully amortized with a 3% interest rate over a 37.5-year term. The estimated monthly payment is $18,500. El Patio can afford these monthly payments because they've retired a lot of debt and they're taking over the management of the senior housing 48 units and are going to have quite a bit of efficiency and cost containment due to that change. This guaranteed payment and CCRC payments will further improve the city's security as both loan balances are reduced over time. In terms of the long-term affordability, the new covenant will provide the city assurance that all 113 units remain affordable for low-income senior and family households during the term of the city loan. The El Patio project is extremely well maintained and has always been in full compliance with the city's affordability and reporting requirements. The new covenant will expire on January 1st, 2051, six months after the loan is due, to ensure full compliance and final payoff prior to release. This modification benefits both the owner and the city. It's a win-win scenario. The owner benefits by being able to anticipate predictable cash flow to facilitate the provision of quality, affordable housing to current and future residents for the next several decades. The city benefits by providing no additional funding, extending the covenant 27 years, and increasing the city loan security. In addition, due to the demise of the RDA and its funding, these guaranteed payments will support the necessary monitoring and enforcement of the city's affordable housing program and potentially funding for other affordable housing initiatives. Budget and financial information. The city will incur no additional costs in connection with this request. The current principal balance of the RDA SEMP loan is approximately $5 million. As currently structured, the city earns no interest income on about $1.5 million interest balance, and that balance is increasing. By converting this loan from 4.5% interest rate to 3% compounded, the effective interest rate is approximately the same. The city receives fixed monthly payments of principal and interest, and the loan balance decreases over time. I've provided you with a handout that is on the top. It talks about effective interest rate, and what I'm trying to demonstrate there is that you have about $1.5 million of money that's collecting no interest, and so therefore you're really only getting interest on the approximate $3.5 million. So the effective change in rate from 4.5% simple to 3% compound is relatively the same. Staff requests that the Finance Committee recommend that Council approve the requested loan modification for the El Patio project. Chairman Francisco and members, I'd like to open up to any questions you might have. As I pointed out before, the owner and developer, Bill Wagner, is on the front row, and he's open to answering any questions you might have.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Rowell. Questions from the committee members? Mr. White?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I had a conversation with Ms. Randolph this morning, which helped me navigate a little bit here, and thank you for that additional information. Still, the pieces that are missing for me is the comparison of what we're getting today, month to month, as opposed to what we're getting in the future. Maybe the way this thing was structured, I either didn't understand it, or else perhaps it's not here. So what are we getting on monthly payments today on these loans?
Chairman Francisco, Member White, I have another handout. I apologize for not getting it. In answer to your question, this last year we received a monthly payment of $10,000, and occasionally we got an additional payment of, one time I believe it was $100,000. So there is an increase with this amortized payment plan. However, as I pointed out before,
there is an increase in that. I don't understand. Forgive me if I'm asked. I just want to make sure I'm understanding it. So we're getting $10,000 a month, roughly, with occasional larger amounts as revenue is better, then the city shares in that in some fashion, right?
Well, every year I look at the financials for El Patio project and I determine what the residual receipts are. And between years, there is additional cash flow that comes off the property, and Mr. Wagner volunteers to make additional payments. If you look at the handout I gave you, on the last year, there was $190,000 collected total. That's that line at the bottom.
Okay.
Payments. Actually, there's probably another $20,000 to be added to that. So that's about $210,000. And if you take 18,000 times 12,
Well, and this is for 9 months, right?
correct.
So we have 3 more,
Which
10, 11, 12.
so call that 220,000.
Okay.
And so 18 times 12 is about 220,000. So it might be a little more, but it's not something that the project can't easily handle.
Oh, I understand that. I just, the obviously catches one's eye when you say, well, a better deal is getting 3% interest than getting 4.5%. I have to sort of, I can understand what you're saying, that there's there's $1.5 million that's not gaining interest. The follow-on question would be, when would the city receive that money back that it has loaned?
That depends on the analysis of the financials each year and where the positive cash flow is at that time. If he has additional capital expenses, what's happened most recently is he has a lot less debt on the project, so he's able to dedicate more payments to the city. And that's basically it. Every year, it's not a reliable or guaranteed amount of money. It can go up or down, and you can see on this handout I gave you that it has gone up and down, and recently risen quite a bit. I'm hoping I'm answering your question.
Well, in other words, if the city loaned the developer $5 million, presumably there will be a repayment. How? And when? And how does that compare to? And again, it's a comparison to what is proposed, which is $18,000 per month for 26 years. That's what's kind of is the proposal. I just don't have anything over here on the left side that says here's what is, and then here's what's proposed, and how that deal compares. And I'm trying to get that clarified.
Yeah, I apologize. The only thing I can tell you is that each year there's a check-in on the cash flows and the positive receipts, and that determination on what the payment should be for that year is made. If, for example, there's a lot of capital improvements that year, then there may be no payments or reduced. So it's project by project, and it's deferred interest. And it's simple interest. So the balance, theoretically, if there is no positive cash flow, the balance could continue to rise all the way to the end of the term of the loan. And it could be a fairly large balance. As you can see from this, it was originally $3.35 million, and then now it's $5 million. And El Patio's been making some fairly large payments.
And so that then the year 2026 is when the balloon would be due.
Correct.
Okay. And what we're doing here is changing that from a balloon to a
We're extending
fixed.
the term. That is correct.
Okay. So that's one thing we're doing is we're giving, we're lowering the interest rate and extending the term and increasing the month and guaranteeing the monthly payments.
And we're improving our risk position because the balance is being paid down at a guaranteed step. So that over time, if you look at the attached amortization schedule and you look at the principal balance, it draws down to where our loan to value drops over time.
Okay. Although that portion as well, we are now there's $605,000 besides our $5 million that's owed on this property.
Correct.
But the developer could refinance that, could go in and borrow $20 million and put us in a higher risk situation.
He would have to make that request to the city, and that would be a subordination request.
The city has the control of that
Yes.
issue. So
we have total control.
We don't have a risk of a worsening loan to value ratio unless the property goes down in value.
That's correct.
Okay, so that part of it is not a judgment call. I appreciate that the cash flow improves and is guaranteed. And of course, I was scratching my head about the going from 4.5 to 3 and extending the term. I would say usually those items are flipped in a refinance, where if you're going to extend the term, you're usually paying a higher interest rate. That would be what folks out in the
Correct.
outer world would be required to do. And I understand how you're, the rationale for what's going forward. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Just a couple of questions. The TCRA guarantees affordability out to 2051, correct?
Correct.
So this doesn't really change anything. That would be true regardless, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, what it does do is we have a legal executed document that takes us out to the same expiration date as the TCRA. So we have our own document that aligns with the loan terms and expires 6 months after the loan's to be paid off. So it provides us a little more leverage, if you will. But you are correct in that the affordability term is
guaranteed.
exactly the same.
Okay. What would happen? What would happen if we don't do this? What's the downside?
I believe Mr. Bell Wagner would probably attempt to refinance the loan and pay us off. Is that? I don't want to speak for yourself.
Well, much speak on.
That is correct. And the terms that we're talking about here with the city. There you go.
There you go.
This is one of the reasons that this all happened. I was planning to do some refinancing on El Patio, and I have a major lender that I've dealt with on some other properties, who is a nationwide lender, makes loans on all kinds of affordable housing, regular market housing, mobile home parks, and I have done 2 loans with that lender, totaling about $11 million. So I called my contact there to get his comment on what would be available in the marketplace. We furnished him some new figures so they could have them, and their commitment verbally to me was 3%, subject if the market changed in the next 6 or 8 months while we were processing, it could go up possibly to 3.5, but they felt based upon what's transpired the last 24 months that they could say 3%. So I was looking at a brand new loan, 3%, 38-year term, same term, and with a lender that I'm experienced with and have a loan background. So that prompted my phone call to David, and I said, David, I just want to alert you that I'm talking about refinancing the property. And this was back in about October, and I said, based upon their guesstimates and mine, we probably would close this by July 1 of 2013. So I just want to let you know what I'm doing, and so you'll have a feel for it. And so that led to our conversations then about, maybe the city would like to have a loan stay in place and so forth. So we continued our conversations, and it appeared that it looked like it would be practical and probably financially doable on the terms that we have finally discussed here. And it's good for me because I'm dealing with a lender that's local. You people are here. You can drive by the property, once a week or 3 times a week, and from my standpoint, I would much rather be doing business with the city than with a commercial lender. I can do that. I've done it, and so this certainly, to me, seemed like a win-win situation for both parties. And so that's why we
Okay.
got to where we are.
That makes sense. Thank you. Did you have a question,
Yeah, I
Mr.
did.
White?
That
Please.
was that line of questioning. So would then, in that situation, would the city receive a single payment in order to refinance the loan? Is that what the
Yes. Yeah.
what
The
that
city would be
mechanics would be?
the city would be paid off in full because I would be putting a new loan on of approximately the same amount,
Right.
but I would be paying off the existing loans, which would be the city loan and the CCRC loan.
Okay. So then that would be our judgment call. Would be, do we want $5 million in cash, or do we want $18,000 a month? So I'd appreciate hearing why we would rather have $18,000 a month than $5 million in cash.
You want to? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner.
Chair Francisco and Member Wright, that is a perfectly good policy question. And I think 3 years ago we would have been interested in the lump sum and use that money to then finance a new affordable housing project. And that's because we had the redevelopment agency at the time that we could use the 20% affordable housing money
Right.
set aside to pay for our administrative costs. So our world gets turned upside down in the redevelopment world. We lose that ongoing source of revenue to pay for our monitoring of our entire affordable housing program. And so we need to look strategically about how we're going to fund that without relying on the general fund to pay for those administrative costs. This is one of our larger outstanding loans. And so if we lost that through a lump sum payment and reinvest it, we'd be really scratching the surface to come up on an annual basis the income we need to support the
$200,000.
program. And so that's why we look at this as a really nice long-term stable source of funding that's able to support a good majority of the administrative burden that we have for our affordable housing program. So we really prefer the loan approach.
Okay. All right. We wouldn't have to spend that $5 million doing something else, but I appreciate that it's sitting there waiting to be spent, and that's the temptation.
The temptation will be there, exactly.
Thank you.
Mr. Rell, did you have something else?
Chairman Francisco and members, I would also add to that a 3% return is actually fairly good these days, especially if you compare it to things such as the life rate.
Sure.
And the fact that this is a 37% loan to value loan with a credit-worthy customer. I just thought I'd add that point.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to recommend this to the full council.
I'll make a motion. To recommend that council approve a modification to the terms of city financing on the El Patio Affordable Housing Project.
Is there a second? Or you can flip. It's up to you. There's no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Wagner.
Thank you for taking time to work on this. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Meeting adjourned.